Hey, this is Ash from Outlier. This is the fourth video in our series on how Chinese characters actually work. Our last video was about empty components. And to recap, empty components are components that only give an empty form to a character. That is to say, a form that's not related to their sound or meaning. Today, we're going to talk about sound components. And as you can guess, sound components are components that add a sound to a character. Sound series is a set of Chinese characters that all have the same exact sound component. In Chinese, the sound series are called諧声系列. When looking at these series, keep in mind it's not important that you know all of the characters within a series. The only thing that's important is that you notice the sound components are the same for each of the characters, and notice the sound variation between the sound component itself and the other characters within the series. That's the kind of the main point we're trying to show here. Now, the first series we're going to look at is for the sound component qi. Now, as you notice, these characters all have the exact same sound. They're all pronounced qi. They all have the same tone, the same pronunciation. A second example of a series like this would be the series for fu. So, those were two examples of very pretty sound series, but unfortunately, that kind of series is actually not very common. Now we're going to look at an example for the sound component ju. Now, as you'll notice, all the characters in this series have the same sound. It's all ju, but the tones vary. Now, here's another series like that. This is a series for kwang. And in this series, you also notice that the pronunciation is all kwang, but might have different tones. Kwang, kwang, or whatever. These two series are actually still fairly pretty. They all have the same pronunciation, tones vary, okay? This is a pretty common, but they get uglier. Now let's take the next step down towards ugly. This series is for tong, and with tong, you'll notice that the rhymes are the same, but the initials differ. You have duh and tuh. But if you say duh, tuh in your mouth, you'll realize they're pronounced in the same part of the mouth. So if I say duh, guh, you'll notice they're very different, right? But duh, tuh are pronounced in the same part of the mouth, and that means that they're very closely related sounds. And here's another series like that. This is the series for zhi, and you'll notice you'll have variation along the lines of zhi, zhi, shi, and that the tones also vary. Now this is also a pretty common type of sound series. Now some series are downright ugly. Look at the series for ye. Now from the perspective of modern Mandarin, it's hard to even see that a lot of these are actually sound components. But you gotta remember that the language we're talking about is Old Chinese. In other words, Chinese from 3,000, 3,500 years ago. Let's switch over here to look at the qie series, but also qie. It's a very ugly series. A lot of variation in both vowels, both initials and in tones. So, like I was saying, the sounds 3,500 years ago were a lot more similar than they are today, but you've had 3,000 years of sound change. There were also other things going on, but we don't really want to get into it in this video. Now, Outlier actually has a secret weapon that will help you understand these things, but unfortunately, I can't tell you just yet. It will appear in our dictionary, but for the time being, you'll just have to trust me on that. If you like this video, be sure to hit subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And if you're really into the origins and evolution of Chinese characters, then check out our blog. Until next time.